首先係影相先嘅。
Let's have a photo call.
歡迎大家出席今日嘅記者會。
Welcome to the press
首先
briefing
介紹
today.
台上3位，分別係
The officials we have today are Mr. Michael Wong, Secretary for Development, Mr. Andrew Lai, Director of Lands, and Mr. Ivan Zhong, Director of Planning. First, the Secretary will make an opening remark introducing the 2022-23 land sale program, and then we will take questions. Secretary, please. Good afternoon, media friends.
首先咧，我會回顧一下21-22財政年度
Now,
土地供應嗰個
about the overview of land supply in 2021 and 22, I will give some remarks, and then I will talk about the Q1 land sale program for year 2022 and 23. If you look at the land supply in year 2021-22 for residential sites, 20,600 flats were provided, or a land capable of providing such a number of flats that was provided. For commercial industrial sites, there were 175,340 square meters. Compared with our supply targets for the year, we have exceeded the target by about 60%.
如果你睇翻嗰個
Among the 20,600 flags, in terms of distribution, most of the flags are provided by private development or redevelopment projects subject to lease modification or land exchange. They make up for half of the total supply. If you take a look at the supply since the fiscal year 2017 to 18, the total supply in the past 5 years were 86,374 flags. With the new policies and the public-private housing mix were adjusted as well. Overall, we have exceeded our supply targets by about 15%. For commercial sites, in year 2021 to 22, an industrial site in Fanling was awarded. And also, we have put up for tender a commercial site in Tongchong. Altogether, some 120,000 square meters of gross floor area will be provided. And also, at the Caroline Hill Road, Causeway Bay, and Banyu Street and New Central Harbour Fronts. The two commercial sites have been put up for tender in the previous fiscal year, and in year 2021-22 they were awarded. The four sites altogether can provide a total floor area of 375,340 square meters. On the 2022-23 land sale program. Now, an overview. There will be 13 sites put up for tender. It is estimated that some 8,250 flats can be provided. That's the potential. Every quarter, we will make announcements on the concrete number provided. For commercial sites, there will be 4. The maximum gross floor area provided will be 296,800 square meters. Now about the supply targets of land and housing. We set our target in accordance with the long-term housing strategy set out by the Housing Authority. The supply targets for housing will be 430,000 units. The public-private housing split will be 70 to 30. So the supply targets from private housing land will be 12,900 flats. So like I said, 13 sites capable of providing about 8,250 flats. List of sites. 4 sites will be on the Hong Kong Island. Please refer to the pamphlet. 2 sites are in Kowloon and 7 sites in the new territories. An analysis by region. Over half of the sites are in the new territories, 30% in Hong Kong Island and 15% in Kowloon. By estimated flat number or size, for small sites capable of providing 100 to 490, for providing 1 to 99 flats, there are 3 sites. Medium size providing 100 to 499 flats, there are 5 sites. For large size providing 500 flats or more, and there are also 5. Among the 13 sites, 8 sites have completed the OZP outline zoning plan amendment procedures. 5 sites are subject to OZP amendments. For railway property development projects in 2022-23, there are 3 railway property development projects this year. They are all in Lantau, 2 in Tung Chung and 1 in Siu Ho Wan near Tung Chung, capable of providing 4,580 flats in total. Projects of the Urban Renewal Authority or the URA, there are 3 projects, 2 in Sai Ying Pun and 1 in To Kwa Wan, capable of providing 910 flats. Forecast of private developments and redevelopment projects. The methodology is taking out the highest and the lowest figures in the past 10 years and make an estimation based on the 8-year average. For private developments or redevelopment projects subject to lease modification or land exchange, 2,100 flats. For those who are not subject to lease modification and land exchange, also 2,100.
So for 2022-23, we're talking about the potential supply. We have 17,940 flats. That's a little bit higher than the 12,900. That's the target that we had. For commercial sites, there are 4 commercial
咁
sites
今次咧4幅都係咁
included in the land sale program. They're all in
比較
Kowloon
大型嘅
area.
喺旺角洗衣街嗰幅啦，可能大家都
The
熟
one
悉
in
㗎。另外喺
Sayi
啟德
Street
有個 2A 區
is
1
the
號
larger
嘅
one,
用地。
and also
咁呢啲
Kai Tech
個
Area
樓面面積用翻尺
2A
數嚟計咧，
Site
1萬
1.
尺㗎，相對大型啲㗎。
It
咁
is
喺觀塘安達
of
臣
a
道
larger
都有兩
size.
幅咧，
There are 2 off Addison Road. There are smaller size
咁加埋呢4幅地啦，一共佢哋提
for
供
the
到咧，
community.
以平方米嚟計咧，就係
In combination,
28,800
they can provide 296,800 square meters.
同大家報告下咧，最低單位面積要求咧。
In terms of minimum flat size requirement, there has been some progress. If you cast a mind back 2 months or so ago,
我哋公佈咗
in December 2021,
小欖嘅地啦，嗰幅地可以大
we have announced
單位嘅。
a site in Siulam providing about 2,000 units. Now, in that land sale condition, we have
咁我哋要求
included
咧，如
a
果以尺
minimum
數嚟計啦，
flat size
面積咧，我哋
restriction.
希望咧，即係我哋需要佢最少要有大約
It
280
should
平方尺。
have a minimum of
咁當時
280 square
我哋嘅社會都
feet
有個聲音
in
咧，就係
saleable
因為
area
好多
per unit.
如果近年好多新嘅一
In
啲所謂
recent
納米樓
times,
嘅供應點嚟㗎
we've
啦
seen
其
a
他啲
lot
重
of
建項目
nano
咁
flat
當時我諗社會都有聲音就
developments,
係話
and
政
there
府
was
會唔會考慮就係
some
話喺呢啲重建項目，
suggestion
如果佢需要係
that
修訂個地契㗎，
for redevelopment projects
加一個
where
最低嘅單位面積
these
要求咁我哋
modification
話我哋會
is required,
就
we
對住咧
should
係深切考慮。
impose
咁可以同大
a
家報告
minimum
咧，我哋
flat
考慮
size
咗啦
restriction.
我哋
Now,
會
our
做
consideration
咁其實從明天開
has
始2月25號。
completed,
咁地政署如果佢
and we're
有
going to
新
do
嘅
this,
申請入到地
and
政署咧
starting from
呢個要求
tomorrow,
咧
Feb
會係適
25th, if there is a new applications coming in, this
都講講
requirement
接住啦
would
2023
apply.
第一季度，即係
Now for
2022
Q1
年嘅
2022-23,
到到
that's
30
1st of April to 30th of June. That's the specific number, not potential.
喺呢段期間呢，我哋
During
會
this
政府賣地呢，我哋有
period,
2幅，一個呢喺灣仔皇后大
We're
道
going to have 2 sites,
東，
one
加埋
at
啦
Queen's
係
Road East,
270
one
個單
side,
位
and the other one in Hospital
天路物業
Road.
發展項目會有一個係東
we have 270 flats.
大家係都熟悉嘅。
The railway property development at Dongchong
市
Traction
建局啦都有一
substation
個項目
with
喺
1,600
西營盤嘅
flats.
永利
URA,
大約啦係
there's one project at
160個
Saying
單位
Pun,
咁連同呢段期間咧，
Song
應該
Heng
有一
Leng
個私人
with
土地發展項目咧
165
可以
flats, and there is also one
咁呢個咧
private
我呢個項目費
development
嘅大約係35個單位。
this is a smaller project with 35
總結我
flats.
呢度好簡單講，
In
我哋嚟
summary,
緊我哋都會繼續以多管齊
we
下
will
嘅
continue
方式
to
全方位覓地啦，
adopt
咁
a
我哋亦都係
multi-pronged
會
approach
努力嘅維持
to
持續
identify
維穩定嘅
land, and we will maintain sustained and steady land supply going forward.
樂意回應大家嘅問題。
好，
I'd
而
like
家係
to
提問時間，
take
請大家
questions from
先
the
舉
floor.
手講出你嘅
Right,
名
please
稱同埋代
raise
表
your
嘅機
hands
構。
and identify the organization you represent.
第二行嗰位男士。
Gentleman in the second row, please.
係局長兩位處長好，
Secretary
星島日報嘅
and
想
Director
問下咧，
Singtao
即係
Daily.
睇翻過往幾年嘅數據咧，即係賣地
You
表
look
上
at
嘅政府土地咧嘅供
the
應都係唔
data
夠
for the
1萬
past
個
couple
單
of
位
years,
啦。
we have
咁
less
即係
than
個供
10,000
應嘅重責都係
flats,
一鐵一局啊，都依賴一啲私人
and
重
you
建
rely
個
very
項目
much on
啦。
the
咁
URA
嚟
and
緊會
the
唔會都即係加翻
MTRC.
多啲賣地表上
Will
住
you
宅嘅
be
供應咧？
increasing the
咁另外
supply
就係即係
in the
嚟
residential
緊推
sites?
來季推嗰啲地咧，會唔會
And
都
for the
加入呢一個
sites
限制
in the
嘅
coming quarter, will you
同埋如
also
果加嘅
impose
嘅
the minimum
長
flat
長程
size
又係點
restriction?
咧？
And what are the details if
同
you're
埋
going
即
to do
係
so?
嚟緊嘅商業氣氛都唔係咁好啦。
The
咁
sentiments
又有一啲黃洗衣街嘅
not
重
so
量級嘅
good.
項目
You
都
have
都
some
擔唔擔心
heavyweight
商業氣氛
site
影響
like the
咗
one
個
in
招標嘅
Sayi
程序
Street.
或者
Are you
因
aren't you
為
worried
呢
that
個招標
the
咧
commercial sentiments would
首
impinge
先講翻
on the
賣地會唔會
tender.
加一啲係
Right, as to the question whether we're going to impose a minimum flat size restriction, we will. And thank you very much, Sing Tao, for this question. In the land sale program, we will include this, unless the size of the site means that we cannot do it, but we do not see this for the time being. Now, for government sites up for tender, the potential supply is something like 8,000 compared with 21-22. The sites disposed by tender, we had about 3,000. Now, for these 8,000 flats, some of them would require planning or site treatment. We are confident that in 22-23, the sites are up for tender. In terms of the number of housing flats, the number will be more than 3,000, and we are fully confident in this. In the longer term, I think it's going to be better. In the past 2 years, from the land sale, you can see that we had some sites that rezoned, some call these infill sites. From 23-24, we're going to have larger scale developments, and the output will be of a certain scale, like the Tung Chung extension area. The reclamation is proceeding really smoothly, and Kutong North and Fanling North NDAs, and there will be land coming down the track, and these are larger sites, and the sites that will be available to use would be larger. And you mentioned the commercial sites. As far as the government is concerned, we have a longer-term horizon because we do have economic ups and downs, and we have to make sure that we will supply the land in a sustained and steady manner. Now, in terms of these commercial sites, if we successfully launch a commercial site, we're not going to see the availability of the saleable area until 3-4 years down the line, depending on the progress of the development. And if we roll out the commercial sites, it's going to be good for the economic development. And the short-term premium will not be the sole consideration. We do not rule out the possibility that the tender will be withdrawn, but certainly the market will be interested. Next question, please.
第三行最邊嗰位女士。
The lady on the far end, on the third row. Now, TV, Mr. Secretary. Now, for the size and the rolled out, some of them are of a larger size, given the economic situation, which is buffeted by the pandemic. How confident are you in the land sale program? Aren't you worried that the developers would, because of the current prevailing situation, will not be so active, and there is a likelihood of the land sale falling through? That's all I have for the time being.
Thank you, Now TV, for your questions. Now, I'm not going to repeat myself. For the consideration of the government in terms of commercial sites, the same for private residential sites. We will strive to maintain a steady supply. Short-term economic fluctuation is not our major concern. We have experienced the similar situation before. When the economy is bad, if we reduce the number of sites put on sale, it will not be good for the long-term development of the economy. So the 8,000 flats, that number is the potential supply. The actual supply depends on the actual situation each quarter. We are confident, however, more sites will be put on tender compared with year 2021 to 22. Next
第一
question.
行左手邊嗰位男士。
The gentleman on the left.
各種你好 TVB 嘅。
Good afternoon, TVB.
即係雖然係賣地嘅啫，不過都想問。
Now, this is the land sales
即係喺
program
作為一個
media briefing, but I have
社會隔離設施啊，或者係
another question.
即係
In terms of identifying sites for the purpose of isolation facilities or makeshift hospitals, what's the progress?
作為呢啲臨時嘅設施咧
Have you found any sites suitable for these temporary purposes? And will this affect the
或者雖然
land supply in the near term?
實在大家有興趣。
Although this is the press briefing for the land sale program, but this is a topic of public interest, so I will answer this question. On the 22nd, we issued a press release. There are 5 sites where makeshift hospitals or isolation facilities will be built. One site is at the River Loop. That is a large site, and there are 3 sites in Yuen Long and 1 site in Qingyi. Altogether 5 sites.
因為其實有關嗰個承建商啱啱入場嘅，
The
準確嘅數字依家未曾有嘅。咁如果
contractor has just made the bid. I don't have the actual figures yet, and I will announce the figure in due course.
大概應該做到2萬個，超過2萬。
Altogether,
大概依家我哋睇到係咁樣。
more than 20,000
其實大家亦
beds
都知道㗎，喺翻
can be provided.
我哋會加建啦。
And we are going to continue to expand Penny's
即
Bay.
係如果大家去到睇你見
At
到
Kaidak, construction is in progress.
咁
The
嗰度估計咧，亦都提供到。
contractor has begun work. Also, 20,000 beds will be available. Altogether, we will be able to provide an additional 40,000 beds.
咁但係我諗都係等佢成熟咗咧，我哋
We are continuing to identify sites. More sites will be available
即係
soon.
因為其實呢個咧基本上咧都係內地援建嚇幫助我哋，因為如果用
We rely on the help of
佢哋有優勢嘅。
from the mainland to help us build the facilities. We are adopting the MIC construction method. The mainland builders are more experienced in this method. The components are prefabricated in the mainland. So when we have the update, we will announce the details
下一個提問。
in due course.
第2行中間
Next
嗰位
question.
女士。
The lady in the middle.
局長你好，明
Good afternoon, Secretary. I'm from Mingpao Daily.
修訂換地契約嗰度咧，
Now about the amendment of lease
其實點解要有呢個條款
conditions of
咧？
land exchange.
最低面積嗰個。
You mean the minimum flag restriction? Minimum flag size restriction? Yes, this condition will be included in the land exchange condition. So this is to prevent property developer from rolling out nano flags.
咁我想問點解？
Is that your intention?
點解推覆
And
大規模嘅地皮而唔減排
we have a large residential site at Kaidak. Why are we not putting to tender the runway zone in Kaidak? Is it because we need more isolation facilities, so you are reserving the runway zone of Kaidak? Now about the MTR development project, the site at Silho Wan would be put up for tender. That's the first batch in Q1. So do we have
我諗港鐵嗰個情況，如果具體
a number of tranches or batches in
因為我哋
Q1?
唔係喺嗰係下一年度啦。
That's for the next year's land sale program. The sites will not be put up for tender in the first quarter. So more details will be announced at the quarterly land sale program press briefing. For the non-runway sites in Kaidak, we have reserved part of the site for residential purpose. For the runway area, we are now constructing a community isolation facility.
就係我哋旅遊樞紐咧，你記得，咁嗰個要等一等，呢個冇辦法啦，即係嗰個就變咗。
Now that's the tourism note.
或者係
So
嘅時候啦，咁呢個係首要嗰個，即係我哋覺得最重要。
during the epidemic, the top priority would be given to anti-epidemic facilities.
即係如果你話冇咗呢幅地
The
方，
site
會唔會好影響
is
東九龍城作為我哋第二個核心商業區嘅地位？
a prime site at East Kowloon, but it would not affect East Kowloon's status as the second CBD. Now, the commercial floor space in the area is about 290,000 square meters. Together with the projects under approval procedures, there are 3.9 million square meters, and we have the Kowloon, we have the two action zones. So even if we carve away the tourism node site in Kowloon East, is positioning as the second CBD in Hong Kong would not be affected. We are still seeing healthy growth. For your second question, yes, the condition of minimum flat size restriction will be included. Now, the intention is like this. For the government, we can achieve a goal by including this condition in the land exchange condition. The major source of nano flags is not from our land sale program. They mostly come from redevelopment projects. Amendments, applications have to be made, and during the approval process, we can add this condition. And we hear such calls from the public. That's why we have decided to include this condition. Next question, the gentleman in the middle.
Hello, questions from SCMP. About extending the minimum flat size requirement, what are the considerations of making such a change? And for how long will this measure be put in place, and when will it be under review? And also, would you consider further increase the size limit, for example, to even 300 square feet in the future? And also, can you clarify that, does it mean that all kinds of sites are now covered by this requirement, or are there any other exemptions? And also, second question, with the pandemic going, what do you expect the market's reaction on the commercial sites? And last question, also about MTR Xiu Hou Wan project, because MTR once said that for the first phase of the Xiu Hou Wan development project will only be launched the tender in 2024, but now it's included in the housing supply of next year. So can you tell us what's the progress of that project right now? Thank you.
I missed your second question, but we can catch up on that later. I'll try to reply to the questions that I can catch. For MTR, if you look at longer-term figures, then actually, before the year 2030, we believe that a total of 6,000 units can be put on the market. Of the 6,000, the split between public and private housing is like half and half. So it's around 3,000 public housing units and around 3,000 private housing units. And then, of course, this batch of 6,000 units will be developed in phases. So it's basically the first phase should be available in the coming financial year. So there's not much story to be told. On minimum flat size, we announced that in the sale, in tendering a site at Siu Nam, we would try for the first time to impose a minimum size requirement of about 26 square meters into the land sale conditions. After we've done that, I think the feedback from the community is quite positive. And there were also suggestions as to why the government, there were also suggestions that the government should also consider imposing a similar requirement when it comes to redevelopment that requires land lease modification. The reason is this. If you look at the supply, if I may use the word nano flat in our market, the majority of them did not come from government land sale. The majority of them come from redevelopment. So we've looked at the situation and we think this proposal is reasonable, and therefore we've adopted it. You ask how long it would be enforced. As long as it is enforced, to be honest. We'll of course continue to look at the market situation. And you also ask whether it will apply to all redevelopment applications. The short answer is yes. I think unless it can be shown that the site is so specific that it is unreasonable to impose a minimum size requirement. Theoretically, that scenario can arise, but in reality, I think it would be quite rare. So your second question, if you don't mind to
the pandemic going, what do you expect the market's reaction on the commercial side?
I must say this. For the government, when we come up with a site, whether it is residential or commercial, our time frame is never very short. So to us, it is the overall goal of coming up with land supply to meet the society's economic and other needs steadily. I think we think it is the most important. I think in the past we had experienced that if we focus too much on short-term fluctuation, for example, in a market downturn, if it also adjusts downward the land supply, the long-term costs for the society can be quite huge. So that's our rationale.
由於時間關係，我哋答多兩個問
In the
題。
interest of time,
最後
we
一
take 2
項嗰位
more
男士。
questions. The gentleman at the back, please.
局長，香港電台。所
Secretary,
以想問下咧，有關於
RTHK.
最低單位面積要求嗰方面。
Now, with regard to the
就係
minimum
其
flat
實如果
size
係限制
restriction,
咗個最低面積要
if you
求嘅
impose
話咧，你
this
哋有冇評估
minimum
過對於即
requirement,
係嚟緊整體嗰個
have
單
you
位
actually
嘅供應
assessed
數字會唔會
the
影響
actual
會
level of
大嘅
supply and
會
how
係你可能
much of
預期可能
an
係
implication
大單位
does
少
it
咗，
have?
令到
Would there
嗰啲
be
面積
less in the
慳
way
翻咧
of
定點樣
larger
同埋
flats
如果
in order
係
to
降
meet
設
this
咗呢一個
requirement?
最低面積
Now,
嘅
with
要求
this
嘅話，
minimum
對於
size
相關嘅
restrictions,
土地去賣出嘅時候嗰個售價會唔會有影響？
will there be
另外一
any
樣嘢想問
implications
翻
on
咧
the
就
sale
係
prices?
今年即係或者係上個財政年度嘅賣
Also,
地
in the last
受
financial
到第
year,
五波影響嘅
the
暫
land
時見
sale
到未見到咁
program
大啦
was actually
但係你會
affected
唔會
by
預
the
期咧嚟
the
緊可能
fourth wave,
嚟緊呢
although
一
not
季
in a
同埋可
big
能再
way.
下一季都可能
In
有機會
this
受第二波
quarter or next
影
quarter,
響咗個賣
possibly,
地成績咧，你
the
認為有冇評估
pandemic
到
might
究竟嗰個賣地
impinge
收入
on
影
the
響
land
幾
sale
大？
program, how much of how
答
much
你
would
第一
this
個問題
dent
我諗
the
如果
land sale
係
proceeds?
我哋有個最
Right.
低單位面積限制咧，
With
對於
this
翻
minimum
實
flat
情嗰個
size
單位供應
restriction,
影響一般唔會太大。
it will not
因為譬
affect
如舉個例啦，
the housing supply in any way.
自己我哋賣地嘅時候，我哋
In
有
our
一個
in our land
點
sale
樣嘅面
program,
積能夠支持幾多單位咧？
we
其
would
實我哋預
work
咗單
out
位大啲。
how many units
所以
there
如果
will
依家
be.
譬
We
如喺
anticipated
呢個
the
法則咧，
units
喺
that
各
will be
方面咧
larger
係
with
會有
this
個數嘅。
280 square
咁如果你
feet
睇翻私人市
restriction,
場
the
咧，
number
其
will not be
實
any
當然
less.
納米樓係一個大家好關心嘅
Nano
議題
flats
啦。
are
咁但係佢
dear
佔
to
市場總供
everybody's
應量
heart,
高，
but they do not
個
take
基
up a
地我
large
哋提過
proportion of the
可能
market.
係10%幾啦。
It's about
咁所以如果喺呢個基礎
10%
上，
of the
我哋個
market
面積調
supply.
整一個百分比亦都唔係大好
Now, if we
所以
make
影
this
響唔大
adjustment,
嘅。
the impact will not be
關
all that
於
significant.
今年賣地嗰個
As
情
to
況咧，我
the
哋會
land
密切
sale
留意啦。
for this
但一
year,
般
we
我哋
will
唔
monitor
會
the
隨便作個
situation.
揣測
We will
因為
not
在政府嚟講，我重複咗好多次
speculate
我哋覺得持續
willy
穩定
nilly
土地
because, as I said, it is
而
important
呢
for
啲
us
土
to
地
have
供應咗
sustained
出
and
嚟，
steady
無論佢
supply
喺經
of
濟
land.
實請嘅樓面面積推出嚟係幾時咧？
Now, when
其實可能係
the
4
floor
年
space
甚至
will become
5年之後
available, it may
咁
be
其實我諗好難有
4 or
個好準
5
確嘅
years down the
水
line.
準
It would be
會估到當時個情
hard
況
for
係
us
點
to
樣。但係如果你話當時我哋香港
speculate the
經濟需要呢啲
situation because we don't
我哋
have
嘅
the
市民
crystal
需要呢
ball.
啲地去
If the
我哋
land is
今天我哋
needed
冇
for
推
housing
出嚟，
purposes,
到時候追唔翻。
we will not stop supplying the
前面第一
land
行地，
because it will be
右
hard to
邊嗰
catch
位。
up going forward.
局長你好啊，
Gentleman in
香港另一
front.
嗰邊啊，
HK01,
都想
Mr.
問一問
Secretary.
咧，即係政府就北部都會區咧，其實都
Now
係
for
重
the
點發展嘅，但係
northern
見翻未來一年
metropolis,
見
it
到
is
係冇古洞區嗰
an
啲地皮
important
啊，即係
development.
係咯嗰區嘅一啲官地去推出咁樣。
You
我想
don't
問下
roll out
有
and
冇
land
原因
in
啊
Kutong
有冇調整
area. Why
仲
is
有
it? Why is
即
the
係市區
case?
個供應咧，好似都唔係
In
好多。
urban areas,
地
we
嗰度得
don't have
兩
a
幅
lot
咁
in the
嘅
way of supply.
誒
There are
市
two
區
sites
地嗰個
from
嚟緊嘅
Kai
供應係
Tak.
點樣咧？係啦，會
What
唔會
is
都
some
無以為
supply of
繼咁
urban
樣？
plots
另外都想問會唔會
going
有
forward?
再
Would
多
there be any further
嘅
supply?
官地咧去用作呢一個
Would there
疫
be
情
any
嗰個作用咁樣？
government
即係好
land
似
and
最
more
近嗰幅
government land that will
青衣
be
地咁樣，會唔
used
會再有咧？
to tackle
另
the
外都想問
pandemic
地
like
政
the
總署
plot on
同
Chingy
埋
Island?
規劃處處長，睇下會唔會點
Now
樣
we have
幫
the
到
Plan
嚟
D
緊個
and the Lands
土地
Department
供應
here.
嗰啲，
How
會
are you
唔會
going
有啲
to
咩係咯幫到手咁樣？
assist in making available further land in terms of land supply?
不過唔計我哋
What is a very vague question? The third one. We will try our best. Let me address the question about the northern metropolis. That's basically the northern district and Yunlong put together.
佢唔係一個好
It is
僵化嘅行
not
政區界線嚟嘅，佢係一個概念係嘛？
咁 bound by any strict administrative boundary. And we may not have land available every single year, but in the northern metropolis, we are confident if you look further ahead, there will be land available. We're doing a lot of work. If you go there and have a look, in particular Kutong North and Fanling North, the site formation is going on in full swing. It is
你第二個問題係
plain to see that. The second
我哋嚟
question,
緊咧，譬如話我哋有更多嘅土地係會
will there be more land that will be made available for pandemic efforts? We don't rule this out because the pandemic commands a top priority when necessary. We will make available more land. I can defer to the two directors for this question. You are aware that we have streamlined the procedures. We hope that next month we should be able to bring the ideas to the development panel for some discussion. The Plan D and also the Lands Department are involved.
都多謝呢位記者提問啦。
Thanks very much for the question. In terms of streamlining the procedures, the government has been
首先
proactively
第一樣嘢咧就
following
就
up
住
on
過
this.
去唔同部門，包括規劃處啊、
Various
地政總
departments,
署、
Plan
土
D,
管
the
處
Lands Department,
就
the
佢對啲
Housing
規劃參數唔同
Department
嘅理解咧，其實政府都做
did
咗大
have
量
a
嘅工
different
作，即係就住
interpretation
有
of the
啲
planning
地積比啊、
parameters,
上蓋面積嗰個
the
同
plot
一
ratio,
個
the site
評估咧，
coverage.
都做咗啲
We
即係或者嘅工作。咁
try
過程
to
裏面其實都
unify
同唔同嘅專業團體
the
同埋業界咧都有
understanding,
緊
and
密
we
嘅工
also
作。
had
咁其實有
liaison
唔
with
同
the
嘅即係
professional
作業評考咧已
bodies.
經公佈咗
We
啲
have
計劃啦。
published
咁另外第二樣亦都跟進翻
the
過
practice
去即係社會人士
guides
關注
there.
我哋啲
The
唔同
community
嘅
expressed
程序
concerns
啦，包括規
about
劃
the
或者一啲
procedures in terms
收
of
回土地或者
planning
其他
and land
唔同嘅
resumption
程
and
序。
land,
有
and
冇
land
空間做得好
reclamation.
啲
So
咧？
is there
其實
any
政府內
room
部
for
都
us
積
to
極跟進緊呢個
do
工作
better?
嘅。其
The
實主要
government
嘅
has
客
been
戶方面
following
幾
up on
方面嘅。
this. Now
第
we
一
are
就
looking at a
話係
number
就
of
住到成個時間嘅程
dimensions.
序
The first
有
one
冇改
is
善空間
the
咧？呢個
time
第一樣
frame.
啦。
Is there
第
any
二樣
room
咧就話
for
有冇啲程序其實係唔
compression?
同嘅條例
And
重複
is
處
there
理
any
咧，包括處理一
legislation
啲
that,
反對意
that
見。
is
咁另外第三樣咧都係就住話有
repetitively
啲
dealing
工作
with
係咪可以
opposition? There
喺
are
唔同
different
嘅程
pieces
序
of
裏面咧，其實
legislation
可以同步進
involved.
行。
And
包括
also
譬
there
如
are
話啲
certain
規劃程序
procedures
同
that
埋
can
啲
go
調
on
查工作
in
可以
tandem,
同步做得
like
到。
planning and
另外亦都
reclamation.
一
They
個
can
考
go
量
on
就
in
話有冇
tandem.
啲
The other
程序啦，其實或
consideration
者啲
is
條款咧，
there can be
其實都
certain
不合時宜
procedures
嘅，
or
係
certain
值得需要去
provisions
修
that
訂
are
嘅。
anachronistic
咁
that
用城
should
規條
be
例去做一
amended.
個即係簡單嘅例子
And
啦。
let's
譬如而
take
家
the
我哋
town
法定
planning
程
ordinance,
序
for
做
instance,
第
the
8公
statutory
告
procedure for
係
those
2
that
個月
pay,
嘅公
it
告
is
嗰個
2
刊憲，跟
months
住9
for
個月要處
gazetting
理
and
大
9
綱圖交
months
上俾行政
for
會處理。
submission
咁
to
而家9
EXCO.
個空間有冇得
Is there
壓
a
縮嘅
room
機
for
會？
us to
呢度我哋睇
compress
緊啦。
the
另外第二
procedure?
就
We
話
are
處理
looking
啲
at
公眾
this,
意
and
見，
also
我哋而
for
家
the
會去處
public
理就係要有
comments
申述
and
啦，
public
有
input,
公
and
眾
there
意
is a
見啦，再會有啲進一
representation.
步申述。
I
咁呢
repeat,
度
there
會
will
有
be
啲
further
空間我哋可以壓
representation.
縮緊咧。
Is there any
咁
way
所以
we
變咗
can
而家成個政府內部喺
compress
發展
the
局帶領裏面咧，
procedures? So
我
under
哋
the
希望就
leadership
係
of
盡
the
快爭取有
planning
啲初步嘅方向
or the
去同發
development
展事
bureau,
務
we
委
are
員會有個報
seeking
告。
to
咁亦都希望
make a
年內咧
report
可
to
以
the
就住我哋點
development
樣去修改
panel,
或者
and
改
we
善
hope
呢啲
that
程序
we
或
will
者
be
一
able to
個
come up with
其他嘅法
something
例咧，
to
有機會跟
streamline
住
and
呢啲新立
improve
法
on what
會
the
去做。
procedures and submit
我
all
哋請
these
地政
to
處
the
長
council.
簡單講。 講講。
Mr. Andrew Lai, Director of Lands, please. Thank you, Secretary. In terms of speeding up supply of housing and land, there are two directions. First, in terms of procedures, with the steering of the Development Bureau, the Lands Department, Planning Department, and so on, have a very clear division of work. Previously, all three departments were involved in determining the gross floor area or the development density. Now, to save time and to avoid overlapping efforts for the same project, one department will be responsible for making decisions. The two other departments will not be involved. This will help speed up development of land. For the Lands Department, since last March, we have implemented a new measure in terms of a land premium. Sometimes a lot of time was spent on negotiation with the Lands Department. So we have implemented a pilot scheme on standard land premium for industrial sites. Depending on the purpose of the development, we would announce the premium for the industrial sites in advance in terms of the purpose. And then the developers would know the standard rate of premium in advance. It helps us speed up the development. Previously, we could only handle 3 or 4 cases each year because we had to set a premium rate for each site. Last year, we have approved 7 sites. Out of them, 5 sites were charged according to the standard rate. So it provided efficiency and it enhanced the efficiency and provided certainty for developers. Now, in the previous policy address, it was mentioned that the standard premium rate for industrial sites would be adopted in new development areas. Next week, more details will be announced. This will surely speed up the development of land in new development areas. So like the Director of Planning said, we have streamlined the administrative procedures. Previously, we did not engage it from a statutory perspective. Now, with the new term of the Legislative Council, there is room for us to explore whether we can adjust ordinances like the land resumption ordinances to speed up procedures. Now, in terms of dealing with objecting views, under the existing ordinance, there is no time limit for dealing with these objecting views. So maybe we can set a time limit. If the same objecting view or representation has been stated in other statutory procedures, then is it really necessary for us to deal with the objecting view again in another procedure? So there is room to address it. Now, the reporter asked about the allocation of the land. Now, in terms of the 13 residential sites, by region, the allocation or distribution is even between Hong Kong Island, Kowloon, and New Territories. In the urban area, we have 2 sites from Tai Tak providing 3,000 units, so it is quite even. In the previous fiscal year, we have put up 2 sites in Kudong for sale, and the result was satisfactory. Last week, the practice guide was issued for Kutong North and another NDA. We have set a clear timetable. For private landowners owning a site of more than 4,000 square meters in these two areas, they can apply for land exchange. And if the negotiation about a premium is completed by June next year, then these landowners can participate in the development in the NDA in a private capacity. So in terms of land sale and involving the private sector, we are making good progress. That's the end of the media briefing. Thank you.